where it can imagine where it needs to be in 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years, and therefore what do you do on Monday morning? And that's really the post-COP21 challenge. What I also see happening is, something else very, very important happened about 10 days ago when we agreed the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. This means that countries have to phase out more than 90% of hydrofluorocarbons by 2021. This ushers in an opportunity of a whole new era of supercooling, right? Now, that's a risk if you are not quite where you need to be in order to acquire the supercooling that you will need. But the opportunity in this region for the R&D, the manufacturing, and the distribution of a new generation of supercooling technologies and refrigerators and air conditioners, etc., is just enormous. And I think what people are beginning to do post-Paris is just latch on to the size of these markets as we pursue efficiency, low carbon growth, and the diminishment of other compounds which have an effect on global warming. So, yeah, I think that for government, chunking it down into bite-sized pieces is important, but for industry too, saying, look, you build it and we will come, I think is an important part of the dynamic.
There are a lot of challenges ahead and a lot of questions that we've got from the audience, and we haven't even scratched the surface here, and we have run out of time. But what I want to do is just wrap up from both of you and just ask you about COP22 next month, early next month in November, Marrakesh and Morocco. What do you think the agenda is there? What really needs to be done to keep the momentum going towards the emissions targets and renewable energy broadly? Rachel, let me just start with you.
Well, I think every country has offered its own development plan. If you add up those development plans, these NDCs, they don't get us where we agreed that we wanted to be. So the process of making sure that those plans are real and are owned across all the departments of government and by industry in a country is a very important thing. And seeing where everybody is and how to build those processes to be robust will be important. For everybody who's a non-state actor, for every business, every bank, every central bank, every civil society organization, you made a pledge in the run-up to Paris or in Paris, you got to be able to say how well you're doing, because a lot of the progress is predicated upon the action, leadership, and innovation outside of government. And Singapore's a great example of innovation that comes from across society here, and being able to sort of tell everybody how well we're doing and what needs to happen in order to be able to go even further is a big part of what COP is now, I think.
And to your point of transparency, you've got to really deliver on those NDCs and tell the world what you're doing. David, your expectations for COP22 next month?
Well, I think when I talked about the long-term objectives needing to be clear, COP22 has very effectively set a series of targets. It's achieved a fair degree of buy-in, and it is now just a question of people getting on with it.
Yeah.
And as I was saying in my remarks, I think that has implications for all of us. I like Rachel's idea of working back from long-term targets to say, where do we need to be by here, by here, by here, and have plans for getting to it. But it's delivery now, and it's going to be hard work for a lot of people.
Devil's always in the details and implementation. We've got to wrap it up there. Rachel, David, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts, and we will continue that discussion throughout the Singapore International Energy Week. I'm sorry it's been so short. We had a lot of questions, we had a lot of interest and contributions, so I'm sure we can pursue them afterwards during the coffee break or over lunch. Thank you in the meantime.
Thank you, Sri.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Sri, for moderating that as well. And Sri mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, during the break, if you've got your further questions, Anand said that's exactly the time in which you make your way and pose the questions right there as well. We'd like to invite our team on stage for a photograph at this time. A quick one right there. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd now like to invite you to take your seats, of course. And this morning's SIEW opening reception is brought to you by Keppel Corporation. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Nicholas Lai, Executive Director, Gas to Power, Keppel Infrastructure, to say a few words about the reception. Thank you.
Minister Iswaran, Minister for Trade and Industry, Ms. Rachel Kite, CEO and Special Representative of the UN Secretary General Sustainable Energy for All, Mr. David Gray, Chairman of UK Gas and Electricity Markets Authority, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Kappa Group, I warmly welcome you to the Singapore International Energy Week 2016 opening reception. Before we adjourn for the reception, please allow me to say a few words. This year's theme, New Energy Realities, is one that resonates with the Kappa Group and delves into the challenges and opportunities faced by the energy sector. The rapid rate of urbanization is driving global demand for energy and places tremendous strain on natural resources. However, global response to the increasing threat of climate change and resource depletion has been encouraging. In 2015, the COP21 Paris Agreement was signed by 195 nations, signaling a commitment to reduce emissions and to keep global warming below 2 degrees. We are glad to see that 81 countries have ratified the agreement, and it will enter into force on 4th November 2016. Against this backdrop, sustainable urbanization has become an imperative for many countries. By harnessing the distinctive strengths of our core businesses in offshore marine, property, infrastructure investments, the Kappa Group is well positioned to seize growth opportunities by providing novel solutions for building and managing sustainable urbanization. Kappa Infrastructure strives to meet global demand for its suite of solutions in gas-to-power, waste-to-energy, and district cooling systems. For instance, Kappa Sega's contract to provide waste-to-energy technology to the Bao'an plant in Shenzhen, China, has the potential to convert over 10 million tons of waste into renewable energy each year. This will lead to annual reductions of 6 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. To capture opportunities in the growing market for cleaner fuels, such as natural gas, our offshore and marine business tap on the expertise and experience of our yards and international partners to develop innovative LNG solutions. Our other businesses adopt proactive environmental management approaches in their business practices and operations. We tap on renewable energy and incorporate energy-efficient design elements in our properties, data centers, and warehouses. For example, our Kappa Land corporate office is powered entirely by solar energy purchased from Kappa Electric. Through our innovative solutions in high-quality infrastructure and green buildings, the Kappa Group is poised to meet growing energy demands for clean and livable cities and sustainably. The Kappa Group has always sought to advance thought leadership in the industries that we operate in. We are proud to sponsor the SIEW opening reception for the 7th year and support the convening of diverse stakeholders in the energy industry. On this note, please enjoy the SIEW 2016 opening reception. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. Thank you, sir. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to now invite our VIP entourage to make their way to the reception. And as they do make their way, just a couple more announcements. Now, this room, ladies and gentlemen, you must know, will be refreshed. As you make your way back for the 11:15 hour, the entire room will look different, so we ask you to take your belongings with you as you make your way out to the foyer for that reception. And again, do keep that in mind that the next session will start at 11:15 on time. So we'd like to invite you to make your way back as soon as you can. Again, proudly, the opening reception at the foyer is proudly brought to you by Keppel Group. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you now to take your leave. Thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very good morning and welcome to the Singapore Energy Summit 2016. I'm going to reintroduce myself because I understand that some of you have are coming in here for the very first time. My name is Ravi Nadesan, your host for the summit. For those of you who have been here in the earlier part of the day, I'm going to go through the housekeeping announcement a little bit again right now. Do bear with me. For those of you joining me for the very first time, welcome to the summit. Now, to facilitate more questions and comments, we have a real-time interactive platform called Pigeonhole Live that allows you to pose questions directly to the speakers using your mobile devices. You will also be able to vote on the questions that are popular, of course, and the moderator for that particular session at that time will be able to choose these questions and, of course, have them delivered to you as well. Now, Just to take a quick moment, ladies and gentlemen, to explain a little bit more about this platform. If you haven't already done so, the URL link that you're looking for would be www, you can see it on the screen right now, .pigeonhole.at/SIEW 2016 via your web browsers. And once you've logged on to the website, you should be brought to this very page that you see in the screen in front of you. We had a great session in the earlier part of the day, so we'd like to encourage for our joiners for this summit to be able to do the same as well. Now, once you've logged in, you'll be able to select the session. Okay, you can choose the sessions from there, and of course, thereafter, pose your questions. All right? Now, let's very quickly go into the beginning of the summit right now, ladies and gentlemen. Our panel discussion right now will be on Asia's new energy realities. Now, moderating this session is Mr. Chu Chiao-Bing, former Chief Executive Officer of Keppel Corporation. Joining him, I'd like now to introduce his entire panel, the Honorable Simon Bridges, Minister of Energy and Resources, New Zealand, His Excellency Hong Kwok Wong, Vice Minister of Industry and Trade, Vietnam, Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary, United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, Ditlef Angel, Chief Executive Officer, DNV GL Energy, Anil Sardana, CEO and Managing Director of Tata Power, and Luan Jin, Executive Vice President, State Grid Corporation of China. Our moderator and our panelists would like now to invite you up on stage, please, and let's welcome them with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, shall we? And as our panelists get themselves ready on stage, ladies and gentlemen, again, we'd like to remind you to follow us on social media as well, where you can get all information right there. And not to forget, as I mentioned in the early part of the day, to pose your questions on Pigeonhole Live. Mr. Chu, over to you, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us this morning on this panel some very distinguished representatives from the different organizations and countries. We have two ministers here. May I first of all invite Mr. Simon Bridges from New Zealand to give each speaker will give a short address, then we will have the Q&A. First of all, Simon, please.
Thank you very much. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here at this conference, and in particular at this New Energy Realities Forum. And I just thank our hosts in Singapore, as always, for their warm hospitality. I think the new energy realities that we all face are cause for great excitement. And talking with some of the panellists earlier, I think that's a view that we all share, albeit that we acknowledge that these issues we face present us with challenges and with opportunities as well. At one level, I think the issues that we face are the same as they ever were, a trilemma: energy security, reliability, equity, trying to get more competitiveness into our systems, and of course, sustainability. And the three of those are always vying for attention, if you like, and are always important. But with lower fossil fuel prices, I think that helps us with the security and the equity parts of the equation. And I think a theme that came through very strongly this morning is that growing importance around the world of sustainability. And that's certainly true here in really the world's growth engine room of the Asia Pacific. And that's whether we're talking about climate change and the very real issues faced at Paris and Marrakesh later this year, the pollution of our cities, the need for energy efficiency, that spurs us on to more competitive and innovative systems. We all have to transition to cleaner, lower carbon economies. I think one thing that's, can I say, is very small, in fact the smallest, most remote developed country in the world, New Zealand, important, is that the context is all important. What works, I think, in New Zealand doesn't necessarily replay out everywhere else. In New Zealand, we're blessed with an abundance of renewable resources, at over 80% of our electricity being from renewables. We believe that competition in our energy markets is of crucial importance and it's a key driver of technology and innovation for the benefit of our people, making our energy system over time much smarter and greener. And that's whether it's a rollout of the plethora of disruptive technologies we're seeing, the smart meters, the batteries, the PVs or the EVs for that matter. So I'm really looking forward to being part of a very stimulating panel discussion. We discuss all of these emerging realities in our energy sectors.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Now we have the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry of Vietnam, His Excellency Hoang Vuong, to address us.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. It is very, for me, it is very great pleasure to be at this session, Asia New Energy Realities. So this morning we have been listening to different speeches, and I think that as for Vietnam and as for the other countries, we are facing a trilemma. First one, how to meet the energy demand, how to secure energy security, and the second one, how to have the sustainability in the development, and the last one, how to have our economic competitive. So in Vietnam, unlike in other countries, we have very high growth of the energy demand. At the present, we have more than 11% of the growth of energy demand, and our population is very big. The capacity of the power system is almost 40,000, and demand is around 30,000. So with such a very high demand for the energy is more than 11%, it is very big challenges for our country to secure energy security. At the same time, we have to protect environment and keep our economic competitive enough. So our policy is, on the one hand, we have to meet the COP21 in Paris, for which we have signed agreement, and on the other hand, we have to develop different kind of sources, including conventional energy sources and renewable energy sources, in order to meet the power demand in our country. And we talk a lot about the renewable energy, and but for such countries like Vietnam, where the power demand is very high, I think that we have to, on one hand, we have to develop renewable energy, but on the other hand, conventional energy like the coal, like the gas and oil would be very important in order to meet the power demand. And for that, I really want to elaborate and discuss furthermore with you on how to meet the energy demand, how to develop sustainability, how to meet the international requirement for the environmental protection. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, with the increasing of electricity demand at 11% is a huge challenge. How do you get the demand, the supply from both renewable and non-renewable sources? Next year, we have Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, Under-Secretary General of the United Nations Executive Secretary of SCAP, based in Bangkok. She will address us.
Do we have to press this? Oh, this is okay. So a lot has been said this morning, and I am in total agreement with everything that has been said. So I'm going to focus on my region, Asia Pacific. My main point is really that it's for the first time the Sustainable Development Agenda, which has been agreed upon globally as well as regionally on our platform, does look at energy issues, but also climate change simultaneously. And it's for the first time that sustainability zeroes on to two important elements. My second point that I'd like to make is that if there is no action in Asia-Pacific, results are going to be poor. This is because Asia-Pacific region accounts for about 50% of the world's energy resources, demand. Then energy needs are going to double by 2050 under the business as usual scenario. Hopefully that will not happen. We also have a number of countries with very high import demand, so dependence is very high, close to 80%, even where we are sitting. Fossil fuel dependence is 85% almost in the emerging markets. Energy subsidies, while declining, are still in the range of about 165 billion in at least 15 SCAP countries that we looked at. And the Asia-Pacific is the major contributor of the greenhouse gas emissions, close to 54%. Renewable energy is gaining foothold from 1% to now about 3.5%. If you include, of course, hydro power, it rises to 15.1%. So it's a little more promising with the hydropower potential included into. So the issue, having action in Asia-Pacific is very critical on multiple fronts. It can't be solved with looking at one aspect of it. Our energy challenge is vast. To expand production of energy, we have to diversify the sources, absolutely, and shift to low-carbon sources, bringing modern energy to all. Of course, we have 500 million people with no access to electricity, so urgent action is needed on that front, and another 1.1 billion plus who even do not have modern energy sources for cooking. The energy security, climate, and sustainability are going to be, are not mutually exclusive, so we have to work in an integrated manner on these fronts. Of course, exploitation of renewable energy and energy efficiency can simultaneously reduce supply vulnerabilities that our region faces, while also helping climate change, access, affordability, and sustainability. Linked to this are a series of encouraging trends and opportunities, and I'm going to just focus on 5 of these very briefly. First, as has been pointed out this morning, cost decreases of renewable energy are reshaping the energy generation mix and allowing increased competition against fossil fuels without subsidies. And a lot of this cost that is coming down is happening because of the presence of countries like China. Second, energy efficiency is undoubtedly lowering energy intensity of economies and helping to reduce demand. But if you have subsidies of the size that we have in the region, there's going to be limited action. But also we have industries which are still operating on old plants. Third, there is positively an irreversible shift may be underway to electric vehicles with substantial opportunities to replace petroleum with electricity, and it is happening in a bigger way in China, which is a major consumer of energy. Fourth point that I'd like to make is that there is a new leadership that is emerged in the global sustainable energy transition from countries such as China and India. I have been to several platforms where a holistic picture is being taken of the need for energy transition. Lastly, countries and regions are, of course, weighing up ambitious plans to extend power grids and gas pipelines across borders. I will, of course, be happy to answer what we do, but suffice to say at this stage, SCAP has about 60 members, which includes the developed, the emerging markets, and the countries with special needs, the landlocked countries. There are ample opportunities for energy connectivity that can be an answer to the supply constraints, and also sharing of the best practices, transfer of technology, and that is something that our platform is gearing itself to offer. Thank you.
Thank you for overlook of the whole region's issues and challenges. Now we have from DNV GL Energy, Dr. Ditlev Engel.
Thank you very much. Having been in this industry for 12 years, I would say the certainty of where we are going has never been higher. 12 years ago, everybody was debating, will renewables happen or will they not happen? Well, they have happened, and I think as David Gray related to this morning, most of the market forecasts had one thing in common, and that was basically that they were wrong. But they gave people a lot of certainty when they had to make their investments. Now, I think I would just like to touch upon what are then sort of the things that we can feel pretty secure about going forward. And that is, I think, that energy efficiency, cost and consumers, emissions, cities and climate are going to be sort of the embedded things of predicting where we are going. And all of these things have come dramatically down in cost. So I think we have movement from away from discussing where are we going to now, how do we get it implemented? And so implementation, I think, is the key word that we have to focus on. And all of them are already there. And when we talk about a new energy reality and when we talk about digitalization, it is, of course, very important that we realize that we can't take decision on digitalization with an analog approach. We have to understand that the regulatory framework and all the other items we are working with have to reflect what is possible to do with energy efficiency, with implementation of renewables. And therefore, a 360-degree approach about integration and implementation, I think, is absolutely essential. And therefore, I was very inspired of what we heard this morning about Optivat, which I think sounds very exciting in a new way of doing this, what is happening here in Singapore. And replicating and scaling these things going forward, I think, is really the reality going forward of how do we get these things to happen. Because the cost of energy, also from renewables, will continue to go down. Even people talk about that they are very low level now, they will go even further down. So it used to be a cost discussion, I think has moved away into a pure implementation discussion, and also to have the bravery to make it happen rather than waiting for the technology, because the technology won't wait, it will only escalate further through those items.
Thank you. The next speaker is from private sector, Tata Power. Mr. Anil Sadana will give us a short brief on it.
Thank you. Greetings from India and from the House of Tatas. Let me connect up two of the issues that the panelists made. Number one, I touched the fact that Asia is the basket of energy. As mentioned aptly by Dr. Shamshad, that today more than 60% energy actually of the global needs are split between 6 to 7 countries in Asia. So in terms of consumption, this is the basket. But in terms of also production, you find that Middle East, GCC countries, as also some of our Asian Pacific countries, are also one of the largest producers of energy. So what I see going forward in terms of new realities is going to be more trading that will happen by virtue of new innovative methods. She talked about the cross-border pipelines. That's one aspect. But there'll be also concept in which the gas will be perhaps shipped using compressed natural gas arrangements rather than liquid natural gas concepts. This is already a reality on short distance. More work is happening. Companies like us are investing in ships which are going to take it up to 4,000 kilometers at 1/3 the price at which you actually build or ship LNG. The third aspect, which is going to be more formidable, is going to be cross-border transmission systems. It started to happen in the neighborhood of India. You will see that happening across more countries. Now there is a Bay of Bengal congregation that recently met in Goa, close to the event that happened alongside BRICS. And they have all evolved that the transmission systems covering from Thailand, Myanmar, India, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, all of this will be a virtual reality. And I don't see that happening in too far a time. It's going to be a reality in sooner times than what we believe. And I think that's going to be the new reality in Asia that you will see more and more happening in the other regions too. So that was the first part. The second part in the Indian context, which is a formidable energy consumer, we have two challenges. And one, you touched about the fact that the cost of renewables is going to come down, is certainly a case. But we need to appreciate that there are 35% households, and you talked about billions of people who don't have access to electricity. And I think somewhere we need to be responsive. While decentralized distributed generation will certainly find its ways into giving access to people, but more important part is we will have to see that the elasticity factor has to be borne in mind. And therefore, we have to be responsive rather than saying it will be only renewables or none. If need be, we will have to set up efficient, supercritical, ultra-supercritical coal-based stations also to make sure that those people have access to electricity which they can afford. Otherwise, they will be deprived of the cleanest form of energy, which is electricity. In the decentralized systems also, while the rooftop solar and other opportunities are standard subjects, I think we will have to be innovative in getting them to know and make sure that biomass with solutions which are indigenous are provided to those people, because that's the way they see the fuel and that's what they can maintain. So as I see the world and Asia particularly in future, we'll have to be more responsive to provide access at an affordable price to people, and we'll have to make sure that we come out with innovative solutions and facilitate access in sooner times. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Next, we have the EVP of the State Grid of Corporation of China, Mr. Luan Jun, who will give us a short brief. Mr. Luan Jun, please.
好，这个大家上午好。
现在，
当前世界上关于能源的使用，下一步重点开发和利用新能源和清洁能源，特别是可再生能源，是全球能源变革的重要方向，也是唯一的方向。那么人类历史上靠燃煤以及燃油包括水电来满足人类对能源的需要，现在来看不可持续特别是依靠燃煤和燃油满足今后人类能源的需要这个资源是越来越少。包括水电现在的开发很多国家也都开发的资源已经没有多少了。所以当前呢乃至今后发展可再生能源是全球各个国家今后能源变革的唯一出路和重要步骤。世界各个国家都在努力的开发和利用可再生能源。本次会议围绕的主要的议题还是开发和利用可再生能源。那么中国作为人口众多国土面积广阔的国家对能源的需求当前增长的是非常迅速那在这个非常迅速的能源需求增长中如何摆脱燃煤 这种能源供给方式大力发展可再生能源是我们国家当前能源变革的重要内容。那么国家电网公司是负责能源的输送，特别是电力输送的专业化电网公司。在它的业务运营中当前主要的任务就是要保障可再生能源的接入并网和送到千家万户。这些年来，中国政府大力开展可再生能源的建设。到目前为止，可再生能源这里包括水力发电、风力发电、太阳能发电，已经达到了占世界占我们国家总装机的规模容量的30%。这个变化速度是非常快的，这个比例已经远远高于了世界的平均水平。现在我们的这个风电装机已经达到了将近1亿5千万千瓦，太阳能已经超过了6千万千瓦，风电呢现在已经装机规模在世界上是第1位的，风电的太阳能的增长速度也是世界第1位的。下一步如何使我们国家从煤电摆脱出来，向可持续的新能源的发电转变是我们国家和政府坚定不移的方向。在这个会议上，我也提到了关于智能电网的建设。智能电网中国实施的规模和速度还是比较大和比较快的。上午刚才讲到了智能电度表，智能电度表现在我们国家电网公司范围内安装了大约有3亿用户的智能电度表。这个为在用电提高效率更加准确广泛的使用可再生能源也提供了保障的手段就先说这么多，谢谢大家。
Thank you. First of all, let me summarize the discussion so far. I think basically in the region we are a big net importer of energy, especially the fossil fuels. And our growth in demand is probably one of the highest in the world. I think Vietnam has double-digit energy demand growth for many years and will continue to grow as Vietnam develops, industrializes, and more urbanized. China have experienced this in the last 30 years, and as China has become aware of the need to have sustainability by putting a lot of effort on renewables, both solar, wind, and hydro. And I think New Zealand have shown example of they have been tapping their geothermal supply and hydro supply in a big way, so that majority of New Zealand's energy supply is renewable, even though they have pockets of exports of coal and other resources. I think that without a major push by every country into more sustainable carbon neutral future, we will see a huge growth in carbon emissions, primarily from burning of fossil fuels. Especially, you can see in many countries, the demand for coal is rising instead of reducing. And while every country and every company is pushing very hard to try to do renewable, and the cost of renewable energies have dropped drastically in the last 10 years, particularly solar and even wind. Offshore wind in Europe, the cost of installation has come down drastically. But still, the deficit is huge. And in the Asia-Pacific area, we still have 500 million people without access to energy, which means